The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Baird Corrick drank it anyway. Tin and bitterness coated his tongue, and he let the taste sit there while his eyes tracked down the evacuation manifest for the fourth time. The numbers did not change. They never did. 4,700 human personnel, 11,000 dependents. Every ship that could still break atmosphere was listed, every departure window calculated to the minute. He had signed the order 6 hours ago and told no one. The door opened. Tamsin never knocked. She crossed the office in 4 strides and laid a datapad on top of the manifests. The screen glowed red, a contamination map of remnant activity spreading across the continent like a bruise. Baird looked at the map. Then he looked at his sister. Her fingers touched her sternum. 2 taps, processing something that did not fit. 3 cells coordinated tonight, she said. Same hour, same target profile. The occupation has never seen coordination like this. Baird leaned back. His chair creaked. Who's running them? Safali of House Orask. Tamsin let the name hang. War records listed her as killed during the siege of Orask Hive. She's not dead. She surfaced 3 days ago, and the cells have been synchronizing ever since. A dead war veteran leading a coordinated insurgency. Baird did not let his face move. How? I don't know. Tamsin's voice was flat. We control every communication relay on the continent. Every relay is reporting normal traffic. Whatever they're using, it's invisible to us. The gap in her intelligence was the point. Baird rubbed his left thumb against his forefinger. A single slow rotation. Tamsin saw it. She said nothing. The door opened again before Baird could speak. Captain Lydic Harn stepped inside, tall and whip-thin, burned scars twisting up her left forearm where the sleeve was rolled back. She closed the door behind her and stood at parade rest. Tamsin had summoned her without telling him. Lydic whistled through her teeth, a thin, tuneless sound. The violence tick. Baird kept his voice level. You're here early, Captain. Ma'am? Lydic nodded at Tamsin, then fixed her eyes on Baird. Governor, the Remnant is massing at a civilian habitation block in the 7th quarter. We have a 30-minute window before they scatter. Give me the temporal anchor and a containment team. We can end this tonight. The temporal anchor. A staked cylinder driven into the ground like a lance. Once triggered, it froze everything inside a 50-meter radius. Friend, foe, and projectile alike. For exactly 4.7 seconds. The device could not discriminate. A child reaching for a toy stopped mid-motion. A bullet hung in the air. The anchor's freeze field did not care what it caught. Baird set his cup down. No. Lyddic's jaw tightened. Governor, with respect, you want to freeze a civilian quarter, Captain. Men, women, hatchlings. Everyone inside that radius becomes a statue for 4.7 seconds, and then you go in shooting. How many non-combatants do you think walk away from that? If the Remnant is using civilians as cover, then they're still civilians. Baird let the words settle. We freeze a habitation block. We make 300 new insurgents by morning. Maybe more. The occupation cannot afford that math. Lydic took half a step forward. The whistle came again, sharper this time. They're animals. They don't think like us. You give them a chance, and they'll gut every human on this planet while we talk about math. Baird did not correct her. He rubbed his thumb against his forefinger once more. Tamsin saw it. She cut in before Lydic could press further. Let them gather. Her voice was cold and precise. If 3 cells are coordinating under Safali, she'll show herself at the rally point. Let her believe she's unseen. Let her commit. Then we take her alive. Lydic turned. Alive. Dead. She's a martyr. Alive, she's a bargaining chip. The Remnant fractures without her voice. Tamsin tapped the datapad. The cells don't trust each other yet. They trust her. Remove her from the board, and the coordination collapses. Baird watched his sister lay out the plan like she was reading a weather report. Competence without emotion. It was what the occupation had trained into her. It was what it had trained into all of them. Captain Harn, Baird said, you'll stand down pending further intelligence. No anchor deployment, no raids. I want eyes on that rally point, and nothing else until we have confirmation Safali is present. Lydic stood rigid for 3 seconds. Her burned scars seemed to pull tighter across her forearm. Then she nodded once. Yes, Governor. She left without saluting. The door clicked shut. The office settled back into its hum of recycled oxygen. Tamsin did not leave. She stood near the desk, her face unreadable, and after a long moment she spoke quietly. "When do you plan to tell the garrison?" Baird looked up. "The evacuation order is signed," she said. "I saw the manifest update an hour ago. You've already chosen the departure windows. You're not trying to win, Baird. You're trying to leave with as many of us alive as possible." He said nothing. "The garrison thinks we're holding this planet. Captain Harn thinks she's fighting a war. When do you tell them the war is already over in your head?" "Leave." Tamsin held his gaze for a count of 3. Then she turned and walked out the same way she had come, silent and sure. Baird sat alone. The lamp on his desk flickered once, a brownout working its way through the occupation's patched-together power grid. The evacuation manifest blurred in the unsteady light. He picked up his coffee. Still cold. Still tasted like tin. He drank it anyway. The lamp steadied. The numbers on the manifest did not change. Somewhere in the city, a Gorthak adolescent named Plethor was walking toward the occupation headquarters. His left forearm was crooked from a badly set break. His green-gold scales caught the amber glow of street lamps as he passed, and he flattened his throat frill so hard it ached. Safali had given him a message to deliver. He carried it in his head, not on any device the humans could intercept. He rehearsed the words silently as he walked. He did not know what the message meant. He did not know why Safali had chosen him. He did know one thing with absolute clarity. If the humans stopped him before he reached the gate, he would not survive the night. The condensation ran in rivulets down Safali's dorsal scales, tracing paths through the grime of 3 weeks without a proper shedding. She did not wipe it away. The 37 Gorthak assembled before her in the vent shaft were watching, and a leader who flinched at discomfort was no leader at all. 37. The number sat in her chest like a stone. The geothermal vent breathed around them, wet heat rising from the depths, the copper salt tang of Gorthak fear sweat thick enough to taste. Someone's hatchling was crying in the secondary chamber, a high keening that cut through the low vibration thrumming up through the rock. The psychic assault matrix cycling through its charge sequence. She felt it in her jaw, in the base of her skull, like a dental drill heard through bone. "The humans believe we are broken," Safali said. Her voice carried flat and cold across the assembled fighters. "They are correct. We are broken. 37 operational bodies does not constitute an insurgency. It constitutes a funeral procession." No one spoke. The silence was its own indictment. "I did not summon you to discuss vengeance." She let her good eye sweep the chamber, the clouded gray of her blind eye catching the dim bioluminescent glow of the emergency strips. "Vengeance requires strength we do not possess. What we possess is something the humans have overlooked." She gestured, and one of her lieutenants brought forward a data slate, salvaged human tech. The screen cracked but functional. On it pulsed a thermal map of the city above them. Most of the map showed the steady orange of occupation infrastructure. Barracks, patrol routes, the governor's headquarters. But beneath the headquarters, deep in the old bedrock, a needle of bright red was growing. "The architect key," Safali said. "The humans keep it in a vault 3 floors above our heads. They believe it is a trophy, a curiosity. They do not understand what it is doing." She tapped the red spike on the display. "Its heat signature has intensified 63% in the last 12 cycles. The source of that spike is not the key itself. It is what the key is responding to. The old architect ruins beneath this city. Something down there is waking up." A murmur rippled through the assembled fighters. Not hope. Something more dangerous. Possibility. "The key opens a gate," Safali continued. "Not a door. A passage. I believe it leads somewhere the humans cannot follow. Somewhere beyond their capacity to reach or understand. If we can seize the key and activate the ruins, we do not need to defeat the occupation. We need only to outlast it." "And if the passage leads nowhere?" The voice came from the back of the chamber. A fighter named Heskel, his scales dulled to near gray by malnutrition. "If the architects left nothing but rubble down there?" Safali did not answer immediately. The matrix thrummed through another charge cycle. The condensation dripped. "Then we are 37 Gorthak dying in a hole," she said. "Which is what we are now. The only variable is whether we die having tried something the humans did not anticipate." Heskel's throat frill rippled. Not quite submission, but close. He said nothing further. Movement at the vent shaft entrance. Two fighters emerged from the darkness, and between them walked a smaller figure, green gold scales still bright with youth. Plethor. He held his crooked left forearm against his chest, the break from 2 years ago having healed wrong under occupation medicine, and his throat frill was pressed flat against his neck. Cephali's tail tensed. She did not let it tap. "Report," she said. Plethor stepped forward. The fighters flanking him fell back. The human governor refused the anchor deployment. I heard the captain, the one called Harn. I heard her shouting through the walls afterward. She wanted to freeze the Thornside quarter. The governor told her no. You are certain of this? I was translating supply manifests in the adjacent office. The walls in that building are thin. Plethor's good hand kept reaching for his crooked forearm, a nervous gesture he had not yet learned to suppress. They're divided, council leader, the governor and the captain. The captain wanted violence. The governor denied it. She was furious. I could smell it through the door. Cephali allowed herself a slow blink. Her tail tapped the stone floor. Once, twice, 3 times. You have done well, Plethor. She stepped closer to him, and he had to crane his neck upward to meet her gaze. She was nearly twice his height. I have a new assignment for you. You will return to the occupation headquarters at dawn. You will volunteer for additional translation duty. Whatever they need, supply negotiations, prisoner processing, administrative correspondence. You will make yourself useful, indispensable, if possible. Plethor's throat frill went absolutely flat. The copper salt scent of his fear sweat sharpened. You want me to spy on the governor's office. I want you to be my ear in the room where decisions are made. The humans are divided. I need to know how deep that division runs. I need to know when it becomes a fracture. They will suspect me. They will suspect a Gorthak with a crooked arm and a frightened scent. That is what you are. Use it. Let them see what they expect to see. Cephali reached down and placed her palm against the side of Plethor's head, a gesture of benediction that had not changed in 10,000 years of Gorthak tradition. You are braver than you know, hatchling. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is what you do while afraid. Plethor's scent did not change, but he straightened his spine. He lowered his crooked arm to his side. I will go at dawn, he said. He did not say he was afraid. He did not need to. When Plethor had been led away to the rest chambers, Heskel stepped forward again. His tail was rigid with barely suppressed challenge. Council leader, the humans are divided. Their captain wanted to strike and was denied. Why not hit them now, while they hesitate? Why send a child to do intelligence work when we could simply attack? Cephali did not turn to face him. She kept her gaze on the tunnel where Plethor had disappeared. Because the humans lie, Heskel. They lie as a reflex, not as a tactic. A Gorthak lies when strategy demands it. A human lies because the truth feels wrong in their mouth. They cannot help themselves. She turned then, slowly, her blind eye catching the bioluminescence like a clouded mirror. The governor's refusal to deploy the anchor may be genuine restraint. It may be a feint. It may be a trap designed to make us overcommit. We cannot know. The only way to navigate an enemy who lies by instinct is to gather more information than they intend to give. And if the hatchling is caught, then he is caught. The words came out flatter than she intended. And we will grieve him, and we will continue, as we have grieved everyone else. The silence that followed was worse than any argument. Cephali dismissed the council with a gesture. They dispersed through the secondary tunnels, 36 Gorthak carrying 37 burdens, and she descended alone. The chamber housing the psychic assault matrix was the deepest point in the warren, carved from the original geothermal tap the humans had never discovered. The crystalline spines rose from the floor like a forest of frozen lightning, each one humming with trapped neural energy. The vibration was stronger here. She felt it in her teeth, in the bones of her forearms. She pressed her palm to the nearest spine. The feedback hit immediately, a white-hot spike of pain that lanced up her arm and turned her shoulder to dead weight. Her fingers spasmed. Her jaw locked. The matrix pushed back against her mind, testing for weakness, and she let it find none. She stood there with her palm against the crystal, her arm numb to the shoulder, her breath coming in slow, controlled hisses. The humans had killed her mate at Thornside. her eldest hatchling at the rail yards, her youngest in the first bombardment, the one that had glassed the eastern districts before anyone understood what was happening. She carried their names in a bone-deep well of grief she did not permit herself to touch. Sending Plethor back into the governor's headquarters was not a strategic decision. It was a sacrifice dressed in strategy's clothing. She had sent a child into the predator's den, and she would send more before this was over, and she would carry their names too. The matrix hummed against her palm, waiting. Above them all, in a vault lined with lead and silence, the architect key sat on its shelf. The metal beneath it had begun to blacken. The heat it gave off now was enough to scorch flesh, but no human had been in that vault in 3 days, and no thermal sensor had been calibrated to expect a fist-sized polyhedron that seemed to be waking up. The scorch mark spread slowly outward across the shelf, and the key grew hotter still, and no one noticed. The translation bureau smelled of disinfectant and old sweat. Gray light bled through blast-shielded windows, the armored glass muting the morning to the color of dirty water. 26. Gorthak conscripts sat at human workstations, their talons awkward on keyboards designed for softer fingers, processing occupation census data through a server bank that coughed heat into the already stale air. No one spoke. The only sound was the clatter of keys and the low wheeze of fans dying by degrees. Plethor took his station. His hands were shaking. He flattened them against the desktop until the tremor passed, then logged into the terminal with credentials the human supervisor had issued him 3 months prior. The clerk beside him, a human male with thinning hair and a stain on his collar, did not look up. Plethor had never learned the man's name. The man had never offered it. The census work was numbingly simple. Match Gorthak names to occupation identification numbers. Flag discrepancies. Forward flagged entries to a human auditor who would never explain what happened to them afterward. Plethor had flagged 41 entries in the past week and told himself each time that he was only doing his job. He flattened his throat frill and kept working. A door opened at the far end of the floor. The rhythm of keystrokes stuttered. Not stopped. The conscripts knew better, but faltered, a collective flinch passing through 26 bodies. Plethor did not turn. He fixed his eyes on the screen and typed a name he would forget the moment his talons lifted from the keys. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Moving down the aisle between workstations. Governor Baird Corrick walked the translation floor like a man inspecting a fence line. He stopped at the first Gorthak station and looked at the screen. The conscript there, a female named Orvek, whose scales had gone gray at the edges, continued typing with mechanical precision. The governor watched her for 4 seconds, then moved on. He repeated this at the second station. The third, the fourth. Plethor counted the footsteps. 5 stations away. 4. 3. The governor reached Plethor's desk and stopped. Plethor looked up. His throat frill fought him. He forced it flat. "You are new," Baird Corrick said. The voice was not what Plethor had expected. Quieter, rough at the edges, worn down by something that was not age. "What is your name?" "Plethor, Governor." His voice did not break. That small victory felt enormous. Plethor. The governor repeated the name as if tasting it. His left thumb rubbed slowly against his forefinger, a motion Plethor filed away without understanding. "You were assigned here when?" 3 months and 9 days past, Governor. Your standard is clean. I was trained for translation before the occupation." The pause was dangerous. Plethor knew it the moment the word left him. But the governor only nodded, his eyes moving to the screen, scanning the census entries Plethor had been processing. Baird Corrick reached into his coat and withdrew a curled sheet of flimsy, singed at one edge. He placed it on the desk beside Plethor's keyboard. The paper had been handled roughly. Its surface bore the faint gray smudge of a human boot print. "A document was recovered from a raid in Thornside 3 nights ago," the governor said. "The text is Gorthak script, dialectal. My own translators cannot agree on the meaning. Read it." Plethor's hands were steady now. He did not know when that had happened. He picked up the flimsy and smoothed it against the desktop. The script was a child's hand. The characters were uneven, the spacing too wide, the ink applied with more pressure than was necessary, the way a hatchling writes when they are still learning the shape of their own name. Plethor read the first line and stopped breathing. "Well?" Baird Corrick was watching him. It is not a remnant document, Governor. It is. Plethor searched for the word and found nothing adequate. It is a poem. The governor did not speak. He waited. Plethor began to translate. His voice came out softer than he intended, the human words clumsy in his mouth. I asked the sea how far it went. It answered me with Thrasik. Plethor stopped. That word, Thrasik. There is no standard equivalent. It means the sound of waves striking stone in the shallows, not the crash, the withdrawal, the whisper after the wave breaks when the water pulls back over the rocks. He looked up. Baird Corrick's face was unreadable. Continue. Plethor returned to the flimsy. And I said to the sea, I cannot follow you. The land is my body. The sea said, he hesitated. The sea said, then I will come to you. I will wear you down. I will make you sand. The final line was smaller than the others. The script cramped against the edge of the paper as if the young poet had run out of room. When I am sand, I asked, will you still know me? And the sea said nothing. That is how I knew the answer was yes. Silence on the translation floor. Even the keyboards had stopped. Baird Corrick stood motionless, one hand resting on the edge of Plethor's desk. His thumb had stopped moving. His eyes were on the flimsy, but they were not focused. He was looking at something further away, something Plethor could not see. The governor said nothing. He did not interrupt. He did not mock. He listened. Plethor watched the human governor absorb a dead child's poem about a sea the Gorthak had boiled away for industry, and he saw something move behind Baird Corrick's expression that did not fit the monster he had prepared himself to hate. It was not kindness. It was not sorrow, exactly. It was recognition. The look of a man who had once asked the sea how far it went and received no answer at all. The flimsy curled in Plethor's talons. He hated whatever was happening inside his chest. He hated it intensely and without reservation. Tamsin Corrick appeared at her brother's elbow with no sound of approach. One moment, she was not there. The next, she was. A lean gray presence smelling faintly of ozone and crushed mint. She tapped her sternum twice with 2 fingers. The key's temperature has risen 12 degrees overnight, she said. Her voice was clinical, but her fingers were still tapping. The vault technicians are concerned. The refrigeration seals are rated for biological containment, not thermal anomalies of unknown origin. Baird blinked. The distant look vanished. He straightened and took the flimsy from Plethor's desk, folding it once and tucking it back into his coat with a care that surprised Plethor more than the silence had. Move it to the secondary refrigeration unit in the sublevel, Baird said. The one rated for ammunition cooling. If it breaches, I want it contained under blast shielding. The sublevel unit hasn't been cycled since the initial occupation. Then cycle it now. Tamsin did not argue. She left as quietly as she had arrived, her fingers still pressed to her sternum. The door at the far end opened again, harder this time, swung with force that sent it against the wall. Captain Lydic Harn strode onto the translation floor. She was tall and whip-thin, her burn-scarred forearm exposed, her jaw set in a line that looked carved from something harder than bone. She was whistling tunelessly through her teeth, a thin, reedy sound that stopped conversation before it could start. She saw Baird standing at Plethor's station. She stopped. The whistle cut off. Lydic crossed the floor in 12 long strides. She positioned herself between Baird and the door, her shoulders squared, her weight balanced forward on the balls of her feet. The stance was not respectful. Governor. The word landed like a challenge. Captain. Baird's response was flat. He had not moved from Plethor's desk. The garrison is restless. Lydic kept her voice low, but the translation floor had gone silent enough that every conscript heard her. They know about the manifests. The evacuation manifests. Someone leaked. Plethor's throat frill flattened so hard it ached. He did not move. He did not look at either human. He recorded everything. Baird did not react. His expression did not shift. His left thumb rubbed once against his forefinger, a slow, deliberate motion, and then stilled. The manifests are a contingency, he said. Every occupation prepares contingencies. The garrison knows that. The garrison knows you signed the order 6 weeks ago and told no one. Lydick's scarred forearm tensed. the burn tissue pulled wide against her skin. They know the dependents are being quietly moved to the spaceport in groups of 40. They know the evacuation window is 92 days. They know, Governor. They are not stupid. 92 days is a long time. Is it? Liddick whistled one sharp note and cut it off. Because the remnant is coordinating again. You denied me the anchor. You denied me the strike. And now I find you on the translation floor, having a conversation with. She gestured at Plethor without looking at him. What is this? Fraternization? Intelligence gathering? Tell me this is useful. Baird stepped past her. He did not touch her. He did not need to. The motion itself was a dismissal. The refrigeration unit in the sublevel. Have it cycled and prepared for transfer within the hour. Liddick did not move. You are not going to answer me. I just did. The door closed behind him. Liddick stood frozen for 3 seconds. Her whistle started again, tuneless and soft, threading through her teeth like steam through a valve. Then she turned and walked out the way she had come, her boots striking the floor in a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Plethor sat very still at his station. The clerk beside him resumed typing. The translation floor returned to its low clatter, the sound of keyboards and dying fans filling the space where the governor's silence had been. Plethor opened a new file. He did not think about what he was doing. His talons moved across the keys with the precision of long practice, and he recorded everything he had heard. The poem, the key's temperature, the leak, the 92 days, the refrigeration unit in the sublevel. He saved the file to a directory the human auditors had not touched in 2 months. He knew where the blind spots were. Every conscript did. Safali would know within the hour. The refrigeration unit's hum changed pitch when the key was placed inside. The technician who sealed the chamber, a human woman with a faded tattoo on her neck, paused with her hand on the latch. She tilted her head. The hum had dropped, falling below the range of casual hearing, sinking into the bones rather than the ears. She felt it in her molars. She felt it in the hinge of her jaw. She checked the temperature readout. -18 degrees. Stable. She locked the unit and logged the transfer. The anomaly was noted in her shift report as an auditory artifact and dismissed. She did not hear the sound that came next. No human did, but every Gorthak in the city woke from sleep. The frequency was not a hum anymore. It was not a vibration. It was a voice, or something older than a voice, something that spoke in the space between nerve and thought. The architect key, sealed in its frosted chamber beneath the occupation headquarters, had stopped heating. It had begun to sing. And 26. Gorthak conscripts on the translation floor lifted their heads from their keyboards in the same moment, their throat frills flaring in unison, their talons motionless above the keys. Plethor felt it in his broken forearm first. The badly set bone ached with a frequency he could not name, a note that had no place in Gorthak music or human instrument or anything born of the world he knew. It sang through the metal pins the human surgeon had used to set the fracture. It sang through the concrete and the blast, shielding, and the layers of occupation architecture stacked above the thing that was waking. It sang, and Plethor understood with terrible clarity that the sea had answered. The vibration woke him before the alarm did. Baird Corrick sat up in the dark and pressed his palm flat against the wall. The stone was warm, not the ambient heat of the ventilation conduits. Something deeper, something rising. His terminal chimed. Tamsin's voice came through without preamble. The vault is registering a thermal anomaly. 14 degrees above baseline and climbing. Security is locked down. I am en route. Baird pulled on his tunic and did not bother with the collar. He walked through corridors lit only by emergency strips, past 2 guard stations where the men looked at him with the particular stillness of soldiers who did not yet know they were afraid. The lift took him down 18 floors, and the air grew thicker with each level. The vault door stood open. Tamsin was already inside, her back to him, both hands pressed to a portable scanner. The architect key sat on its pedestal in the center of the room. It was no longer black. Threads of deep amber pulsed beneath its surface like veins of fire, and the air around it shimmered faintly in a way that made his eyes ache. It started 40 minutes ago, Tamsin said without turning. She tapped her sternum twice. No external power source, no tampering. The heat is coming from inside the artifact and from the floor beneath it. Baird stepped closer. The warmth hit his face. How far down? 80 meters. Solid bedrock. Then a cavity the seismic sensors cannot map. She finally faced him. There is something down there, Baird. The key woke it up. He rubbed his left thumb against his forefinger. Stopped himself. Evacuation timeline? First transports launch in 36 hours. The garrison does not know yet. Lydic is going to... The lights flickered. The hum from the key rose half an octave, sliding into the range of true sound. A low drone that seemed to press against the eardrums from inside, and then stopped. The amber threads winked out. The key sat dark and still, and exactly as heavy as it had always been. The silence afterward was worse. We cannot move it, Tamsin whispered. I tried. The mass increased. It is anchored to this spot now. Something shivered in Baird's peripheral vision. He turned. Nothing there. Only a shimmer of air that smelled of ozone and crushed mint. When he blinked, the shimmer was gone. No, Tamsin said quietly. You saw that. Eshra is here. Baird had dealt with the Vishuri observer twice before. It was never a reassuring experience. He spoke to the empty air. If you have something to tell me, say it. The voice arrived directly inside his skull, bypassing his ears entirely. The lower chamber is waking. The remnant knows. They are coming for what you guard. Who is coming? The bronze one. She will not stop. Safali. Baird turned for the door. Tamsin, get every sensor we have pointed at the sublevels. I want to know if so much as a crack forms in the bedrock. And Lydic? I will handle her. He found Captain Harn in the tactical center, standing over a map table that showed Thornside District in wireframe orange. She did not salute when he entered. Her left sleeve was rolled back, the burn scars pale and ridged. She was whistling tunelessly through her teeth. Remnant forces are massing, she said. 300 fighters at minimum. Thornside, just like 2 days ago. You turned me down then. The offer still stands. Give me the temporal anchor and I will end this before they move. Baird looked at the map. The concentration markers formed a dense cluster around a public market, the same market as before, the same location, with the same civilian density. It is bait, he said. You do not know that. I know Safali. She lost an eye at Caraxes Ridge. She watched 600 of her people die in the Iron Spine bombardment. She does not make the same mistake twice. Baird tapped the market cluster. This is a rehearsal of the last play. She wants you to freeze Thornside, kill another 100 non-combatants, and hand her a recruitment surge. Right before she hits us somewhere else. Where else? Lydic's voice was flat. The whistle had stopped. I do not know yet, but it is not Thornside. Her jaw tightened. You keep saying not yet. You keep saying wait. Meanwhile, evacuation transports are being fueled on landing pad 3. I checked the manifests. She let that land. You gave the order weeks ago. You did not tell anyone. Baird said nothing. You are abandoning the occupation, Lydic said. You have already decided we have lost. I have decided we cannot hold a planet where every dead child is a new insurgent. The math does not change because you want it to. Then what are we still doing here? He walked past her to the map table and called up the sublevel scans. The cavity beneath headquarters appeared as a void mass outlined in gray. The thermal readings were still climbing, slowly, a heartbeat pulse. We are making sure Safali does not get what she wants before we leave. And right now, what she wants is not Thornside. Lydic stared at the void mass. What is down there? Something old. Something the key was built to open. He rubbed his thumb against his forefinger, felt Tamsin's eyes on him from across the room even though she was still in the vault. And Safali is going to find a way inside it before we can lift off. That is the real assault. Thornside is noise. The tactical center went very quiet. Then the sublevel scanner emitted a sharp alert tone. A fracture had appeared in the bedrock at 72 meters, expanding laterally at 3 centimeters per second. Lydic grabbed her sidearm. I'm scrambling my unit. Belay that. Baird's voice cut across the room. You will take your unit to Thornside, and you will hold the perimeter. No breaches, no anchor. Pure containment. Make noise. Look worried. Sell the lie. You want me to pretend? I want you to make Safali believe we took the bait, while I take a team into the sublevels and find her actual entry point. He turned to face her fully. That is an order, Captain. She held his gaze for 4 long seconds. Then she holstered her weapon and walked out. The whistle did not return. Baird opened a channel to the vault. Tamsin, meet me at sublevel access shaft 7. Bring the heavy scanner and whatever you can carry. That goes bang. Her reply came back clipped. On my way. Baird, the key just pulsed again. The timing matches the fracture. I know. He moved through the corridor at a half jog, and the stone beneath his feet felt alive now, a deep thrumming that resonated through the bones of his ankles. The occupation had held Gorthak for 11 years. The occupation had built this fortress, this command center, this monument to human administration. And they had built it directly on top of something that had been waiting for the key. The access shaft was a vertical drop of welded steel rungs descending into darkness. Tamsin met him there, a pack slung over one shoulder and a short-barreled scattergun in her hands. She looked at him and said nothing, because there was nothing to say. They climbed down. The air grew hot. The scent of ozone returned, thick and close, and a shimmer danced at the edge of the shaft. Ishra, following them into the deep, with whatever rules governed her kind. She is closer than you think, the voice whispered inside his skull. The bronze one is already below you. Baird's feet hit solid stone at the bottom of the shaft. The scanner showed a void 9 meters ahead, just beyond the foundation wall. He raised his sidearm. A rhythmic sound echoed through the rock. 3 deliberate impacts, heavy and precise, like a tail striking stone. Then the wall cracked open from the other side. The fluorescent strip buzzed on a half-second delay from its flicker. Buzz flicker. Flicker buzz. The rhythm had worn a groove into Tamsin Corrick's skull over the past 6 hours. She tapped her sternum with 2 fingers. 18 personnel. 18 garrison members with access to the evacuation manifests. She had eliminated 14 through methodical exclusion, duty rotations, biometric logs, .com blackout windows, financial pressure points. 4 remained. One of them was feeding Cephali information. Tamsin did not believe in coincidence. The remnant cells had begun coordinating within 72 hours of Baird signing the evacuation order. Someone had talked. Someone had sold 4,700 personnel and 11,000 dependents to a reptile with one clouded eye and nothing left to lose. She pulled up the translation bureau logs. Not because she expected to find anything there. The bureau conscripts were screened, tagged, monitored. But elimination meant elimination. Every vector, every seam. Plethor's station log scrolled past. She almost missed it. 3 seconds of audio flagged as sub-vocalization. The monitoring software had registered the frequency band, but dismissed the content as untranslatable. Gorthak throat speech fell below the standard capture threshold. The system logged it as biological noise. Respiration. Swallowing. Tamsin's fingers went still on the console. She routed the recording through the spectral shifter and dragged the playback frequency up into human audible range. The speakers crackled. A voice emerged, tinny and compressed, the cadence wrong. Gorthak throats produced harmonics no human larynx could replicate. But the words were clear enough. Governor listens. Key sings. Evacuation confirmed. She replayed it. Governor listens. Key sings. Evacuation confirmed. 3 sentences? No code, no cipher. Just a Gorthak adolescent reporting to his handler in the simplest possible terms, because the truth required no encryption. Baird had shown Plethor the poem. Baird had stood in that cramped little bureau and listened to a child's verse about the sea-wearing land into sand. And that listening, that single, unguarded moment, had told Plethor everything. The Gorthak were not reading stolen manifests. They were reading Baird. Tamsin tapped her sternum. The screen waited. White text on black. One command would flag the recording for counterintelligence review. One command would put Plethor in a detention cell within the hour. Lydic Harn would whistle through her teeth, and the interrogation would begin, and a green-gold adolescent with a badly set forearm would learn what human intelligence officers did to enemy assets who posed as conscripts. She deleted the log. The screen blinked once. The record was gone. Tamsin sat motionless in the buzzing half-light, her fingers resting on the console, and waited for the guilt to arrive. It did not. What arrived was something stranger. Relief. She had spent her entire career protecting her brother. Now she was protecting a Gorthak translator she had never met because she had begun to suspect, not believe, not yet. Belief was too clean a word, that the occupation was not only doomed, it was wrong. The lie was no longer a tactic. It was a confession. The door opened. Baird did not knock. He never knocked. She had stopped expecting him to 14 years ago, when he was a sector adjutant and she was a junior analyst, and the galaxy still made a certain kind of sense. He looked worse than he had that morning. The skin beneath his eyes was the color of old bruises. His left thumb was already moving against his forefinger before he spoke. The key has begun emitting a signal. Tamsin turned from the console. What kind of signal? Active. Directional. Tyrell contacted me 12 minutes ago. The Gamari ambassador, the crystalline one, the slow-turning spiral of smoky quartz, had broken diplomatic silence for the first time in 3 years. He wants access to the key. He claims it is an architect failsafe. Failsafe against what? Against being unopened. Baird rubbed his jaw, the sound of palm against stubble loud in the small room. According to Tyrell, the key was designed to be used. If it is not opened within a certain window after activation, it opens itself. He does not know what happens then. Neither do I. Tamsin's hand rose to her sternum. She stopped it halfway and let it drop. What does it open? I don't know. The voice arrived inside both their skulls simultaneously. It opens a door that was closed for a reason. Ishra had been present for the last hour. Neither of them had acknowledged her. The Vishari observer manifested as a shimmer in the corner of the room, a heat haze distortion that smelled of ozone and crushed mint. Her speech carried a faint pressure behind the eyes, like the moment before a sneeze. Baird turned toward the shimmer. His voice stayed level, but Tamsin heard the strain beneath it. What reason? Eshra flickered. The light dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. The Vishari equivalent of a shrug. The gesture was not reassuring. What reason? Baird pressed. I am not permitted to say. The words came with a hesitation that had not been there before. Or, I do not know. The distinction is less clear than I would prefer. The shimmer contracted. Eshra was still present. Tamsin could feel the pressure behind her eyes, but the Vishari was done speaking. Baird stood motionless in the center of the cramped room, surrounded by monitor glow and the syncopated buzz of the dying fluorescent strip. He looked like a man who had run out of corners to retreat into. Tamsin watched her brother's thumb move against his forefinger. She thought about Plethor, about 3 seconds of subvocalized truth, about a door that was closed for a reason, and a key that was about to open it anyway, and a Gorthak female with one clouded eye who now knew, thanks to an adolescent translator and a governor who listened, that the humans were leaving. She tapped her sternum once, said nothing. Somewhere beneath the city, in a geothermal vent shaft that smelled of sulfur and old stone, Cephali of House Orask received Plithor's third report of the day. She absorbed it in silence. The evacuation confirmed, the key singing. The governor divided against his own captain. Then she tapped her tail against the floor. Once, twice, 3 times. We move, she said. At dusk. The staging ground stank of charging batteries. That sharp, chemical reek, burnt plastic and ozone and something colder beneath, clung to the back of the throat and would not let go. 50 soldiers stood in loose formation, rifles held across chests, faces half lit by the amber glow of portable field lamps. The sky behind them was the color of a bruise, fading fast toward black. Lydic Harn dragged Plethor by his crooked forearm. She had not needed Tamsin's deleted log. Her own surveillance sat inside the translation bureau, seated 3 months ago against precisely this contingency. When the playback reached the sub-vocalized message, Governor listens, key sings, evacuation confirmed, something hot and clean had ignited behind her sternum. Not anger, certainty. The Gorthak adolescent stumbled beside her. His green-gold scales caught the lamplight and threw it back in sickly fragments. His throat frill lay flat, pressed tight against his neck in a display of naked terror no human could misread. He did not scream. Lydic had twisted the old break in his forearm, the one she'd noted in his conscription file, a childhood injury poorly set, and the bones ground against each other with a sound like wet gravel. Plethor's mouth opened. Air escaped. Nothing else. The soldiers watched. Someone shifted weight from one leg to the other. Boot soles scraped on packed earth. Lydic released Plethor's arm and shoved him forward. He stumbled 3 steps and stopped, swaying. His scent reached her, a sharp, acrid musk. Pure fear. She had learned to read Gorthak's stress pheromones in her first year of the occupation. This one reeked of it. "This is a remnant asset," Lydic announced. Her voice carried across the staging ground without effort. She had pitched it for the back row. "He passed intelligence to Cephali's cells. He confirmed our evacuation before the governor saw fit to tell his own garrison." She let the word hang there. Evacuation. No one spoke. 50 soldiers in full combat rig. 50 faces going hard and still in the dying light. Baird Corrick arrived at a run. He came through the east gate, thick shoulders heaving, the old boxer's frame moving faster than it had any right to. His face was red with exertion and something else. He stopped 10 meters from Lydic, breathing hard through his mouth. "Release him." She did not turn to face him. Her eyes stayed on the soldiers. "The governor wants me to release a confirmed enemy asset," she said. "An asset who transmitted intelligence that could get every one of you killed." She gestured toward Plethor without looking at him. "This thing, this conscript we trusted, told the remnant we are running. He told them when, and he told them why. The key, the vault, everything." Baird stepped closer. "Lydic, this is not the place. There is no other place." Now she turned. Now she met his eyes. "You signed evacuation orders weeks ago and told no one. You let us plan patrols. You let us run intercepts. You let us believe we were holding this world." Her voice did not shake. It had gone very calm. The whistle, the tuneless little noise she made before violence, slipped through her teeth. "You lied to all of us, Governor. So I am giving these soldiers a truth you withheld. This Gorthak is a spy. I will execute him here. They will watch. They will remember what we are." Plethor did not beg. His good hand, the right one, unbroken, pressed flat against his thigh. His frill stayed down. He looked at Baird. Not at Lydic. Not at the soldiers. At Baird. Something passed between them. Lydic could not name it. She did not want to. "Ask them," Baird said quietly. "If you're so sure, ask them." Lydic faced the formation. "I am asking." Her voice rang out. "The governor has already abandoned this occupation. He has evacuation ships fueled and waiting. He signed the order 19 days ago. I have the timestamp. If you stay and fight, you are fighting for a man who has already decided you lose." She swept her gaze across the front rank. "I'm going to kill this remnant asset. I'm going to take the temporal anchor into Thornside and finish what Cephali started. Who stands with me?" No one moved. 50 soldiers in the gathering dark. 50 pairs of boots on packed earth. The charging batteries hummed beneath the silence. A thin insect whine that climbed into the teeth. Lydic waited. The whistle came again, softer this time. Someone coughed. Someone else adjusted their grip on their rifle. No one stepped forward. A new light appeared at the edge of the staging ground. Cool blue. A datapad screen. Tamsin Corrick walked into the field lamp glow. Her gray hair was cut brutally short against her skull, and her eyes did not blink at normal intervals. She stopped precisely between Lydic and her brother, and she held up the datapad like a shield. "The key signal has stopped." Her voice was flat. Clinical. The voice she used to deliver intelligence assessments in the bunker office, 6 hours deep into a shift with cold coffee at her elbow. Lydic stared at her. "What?" It was emitting a signal, a subsonic pulse into the ruins beneath headquarters. "That signal has stopped." Tamsin's thumb tapped the datapad screen. Once. Twice. "The Gamari ambassador is no longer receiving it." Ishra confirmed it independently. "The silence is worse than the signal." "Why?" Tamsin looked at her. "Because it means something has changed." The ground shook. It came from below. A deep, subsonic thud that passed through the soles of Lydic's boots and climbed her spine before her ears registered anything at all. Not sound. Weight. A physical pressure that vibrated through bone and left stillness in its wake. The field lamps flickered. One of them toppled. A soldier swore. A short, bitten-off word swallowed by the dark. The horses, the Gorthak pack beasts stabled at the edge of the staging ground, began to scream. That high, panicked keening was the worst sound Lydic had ever heard. Worse than Plethor's grinding bones. Worse than anything. The tremor stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. The ground shook once. And in that stillness, in that suspended breath between the quake and whatever came next, Baird Corrick reached out and pulled Plethor away from Lydic. One thick hand closed around the Gorthak's good arm. He drew the boy behind him in a single motion. Not fast, not graceful, just deliberate. Lydic reached for her sidearm. Her hand was on the grip when Tamsin stepped between them. The intelligence officer did not speak. She did not raise her hands. She simply moved into the space between Lydic's weapon and her brother's body, and she stood there in the flickering lamplight, gray-haired and unblinking, and her face held nothing at all. Lydic knew that expression. She had seen it on Tamsin's face 100 times, in briefings, in tactical assessments, in the cold hours before an operation. It was the face of someone who had finished calculating and arrived at the answer. The answer was a Gorthak child. Not the garrison. Not the occupation. Not the 50 soldiers watching in the dark. A green-gold adolescent with a crooked arm and a flattened frill. Lydic's finger rested on the trigger guard. The metal was cold. The chemical tang of the charging batteries filled her lungs. Tamsin did not blink. "Do it," Tamsin said quietly. "If you're going to." Lydic did not. The moment stretched. The soldiers watched. The pack beasts had gone silent. Somewhere far below, beneath the headquarters, beneath the vault, beneath the cold stone that had held the ruins sealed for longer than any living species had walked this world, something had awakened. The architect key had opened, and in the vent shaft, in the geothermal warmth she knew better than her own heartbeat, Cephali of House Orask was already moving toward whatever waited in the dark. Lydic lowered her weapon. Not because she had forgiven anything. Not because she understood. Because Tamsin Corrick, the coldest intelligence officer in the occupation, the woman who did not blink and did not flinch, had chosen a Gorthak translator over her own people. And Lydic did not know what to do with that. The whistle came through her teeth one last time. Then it stopped. The light did not illuminate. It stained. Cephali stood at the threshold of the chamber and watched the walls breathe. They were not stone. They were not metal. They were something between. A membrane the color of bruised fruit, pulsing from violet to black and back again. A rhythm slower than a heartbeat and far older. The air tasted of ozone and wet earth, and a third thing she could not name. Something that registered on her tongue as alive. Her clouded eye registered nothing but heat, but her good eye saw everything, and what it saw made her tail go still against the floor. At the center of the chamber, where the key had rested for however many centuries the architects had left it here, the air had split open. An archway, tall enough for a Gorthak, wider than it should have been for the space it occupied, as though the geometry of the room had been asked a question and had not yet decided how to answer. Through the arch, she saw stars. They were not stars she recognized. The constellations of Gorthak were burned into her memory. Every hatchling learned them. The hunter, the gate, the three sisters who guided the first ships. These were different. Colder. Closer. A spiral arm she had never seen, rendered in colors that veered toward ultraviolet, toward something her eyes were not built to process. She took a step forward and the arch hummed, a frequency that made the roots of her teeth ache, and the sound was not a warning. It was an invitation. Cephali. She did not turn. She had heard his footsteps in the tunnel behind her, human boots on organic flooring, the slight wheeze in his breath from the exertion of the descent. She had been waiting for him. Baird Corrick stopped 3 paces from her. He was unarmed. She could see the empty holster at his hip, the way his hands hung loose at his sides, fingers slightly curled. His sister had tried to stop him at the entrance. Cephali had heard that too, the sharp human argument echoing down the passage, Tamsin's voice cracking on his name. But here he stood. "The key is gone," Cephali said. She did not make it a question. Absorbed. Baird rubbed his left thumb against his forefinger. When the arch opened, the key just stopped being a separate object, melted into the threshold. Then it served its purpose. Seems that way. Cephali turned. She faced him across 10 feet of pulsing floor, 2 enemies beneath a city full of soldiers on both sides, and the absurdity of it sat between them like a third presence. Above them, the occupation headquarters still hummed with its machinery and its lies. Below them, the gate waited. And here, in the space between, A Gorthak who had lost everything and a human who was losing everything stood and looked at one another without weapons. I know about the evacuation, Safali said. Baird's expression did not shift. Figured you might. 17 days. That is your timeline. I know about the dependence. I know you ordered it without informing your command structure. I know Captain Harn nearly killed one of my people over it. She paused. I know your occupation is finished, Governor. There a question in there somewhere? There is an offer. Safali straightened to her full height. 7 feet of bronze scales dulled by malnutrition. One eye gray and dead, and the other burning. Safe passage. Every human on this planet. Every soldier. Every administrator. Every dependent. We let you leave in your ships. We do not fire on your convoys. We do not pursue. She drew a breath that tasted of ozone. In exchange for one thing, Baird waited. Your word, spoken here, before this gate, before whatever the architects left to witness. Your word that humanity will not return to Gorthak soil. Not in my lifetime. Not in the lifetime of my successor. Your word, Governor. The thumb rubbed the forefinger. Back and forth. Once, twice. You trust a human's word? I do not. Safali's good eye did not blink. But the gate opened for the key you held. The architects chose you, not me, not my people. We have been here 100 generations, and the gate never stirred. You arrived with your occupation, and your lies, and your cruelty, and the gate woke. I think the architects did not build an escape. I think they built a judgment. A judgment on who? On whoever held the key. Her tail tapped the floor. Once, twice, 3 times. I think the gate wants to know if you are worth saving. The silence that followed was broken by a sound like wind over glass. Tyrell entered the chamber, his crystalline spiral spinning visibly faster than Safali had ever seen, facets catching the violet light and throwing it in fragments across the pulsing walls. The Gamari ambassador vibrated with an agitation that translated as alarm even without his speech. The gate is unstable, he said, and his voice was the scrape of quartz on quartz. An architect failsafe. I have seen records of such things. It opens for the species that holds the key, but only in a time of extinction. Only when that species is about to be erased. He paused, rotating slowly. It will not stay open long. Someone must go through. I will. The voice was young. Gorthak young. The frill at the throat still bright with color that malnutrition had not yet leached away. Plethor stepped forward from the tunnel mouth. His left forearm was still crooked from the badly set break. His scales were still smeared with blood where Lytic Harn had gripped him too hard at the staging ground. But his scent had changed. The fear sweat was gone, replaced by something sharper, something that might have been resolve. Someone must see what is on the other side, Plethor said. He did not look at Baird. He looked only at Safali, and his throat frill lay flat and still against his neck. Someone must tell the rest of us if the gate leads somewhere or nowhere. Let me go. Safali opened her mouth. Baird spoke first. No. Plethor turned. His good arm twitched, a half-formed gesture of confusion. Governor? No. Baird looked at the young Gorthak, at the broken arm, and the blood and the fear that had been replaced by something harder. You're a child. By your measure, not by ours. Still no. Baird's gaze shifted to Safali, then to the gate. The stars on the other side were slowly rotating. A galaxy he did not know. A destination no human had ever seen. The hum of it was in his bones now, a frequency that made his eyes water and his teeth ache and his heart beat in a rhythm that was not quite his own. I'll go. Somewhere behind him, Tamsin screamed his name. He did not turn. I've spent a decade lying, Baird said. His voice was calm. His hands were steady. His thumb had stopped moving. I lied to my garrison. I lied to my command. I lied to my sister. I told them the occupation was working. I told them we were doing something noble here. I told them the key was just an artifact, just a relic, just a piece of dead architect tech that didn't mean anything. He exhaled. I lied to myself most of all. Safali watched him. Her tail did not move. This kid, Baird said, tilting his head toward Plithor, was brave enough to volunteer. A child. A conscript. Someone we broke and kept breaking. And he stepped forward anyway. He turned toward the gate. So, I'll go. Not for redemption. I don't think that's on offer. But because it's the first true thing I've done in 10 years, and I want to see, he took a step, if truth is waiting on the other side. The gate flared white. Tamsin's voice reached him from the chamber entrance, a wordless cry shredded by the distance, and then the light swallowed everything. The pulsing walls, the smell of ozone, the weight of gravity, the sound of his own heartbeat. Baird Corrick walked into the arch, and the universe folded around him, and the last thing he heard before the silence was not his sister's scream. It was the sound of a Gorthak's tail striking the floor. 3 times. Deliberate. Ritualized. He did not know what that meant. He hoped, as the light took him apart, that it meant something like respect. The sound of her own screaming had stopped. Tamsin did not remember when. Her throat was raw, her hands pressed flat against cold stone, and the chamber was dying around her. The walls had gone dark. The organic pulse that drove light through the membrane tissue had slowed to a sporadic throb, each beat further apart than the last, like a heart forgetting its rhythm. The air tasted of ash and ozone and something else. Something burnt at the edge of the senses that her mind refused to name. The gate was gone. The archway that had burned with alien stars was nothing now. Just cooling rock and the faint smell of crushed mint. Baird was gone. She knelt where he had stood. The stone was cold. It should have been warm. Something that powerful, that ancient, should have left heat behind. But the floor was cold and dry and utterly ordinary. She pressed her palm harder against it, as if she could push through into wherever the gate had taken him. Her fingers left a damp mark on the stone. Behind her, boots on the tunnel slope, Lydic Harn entered the chamber with her weapon raised and half the garrison at her back. Her scarred forearm was bare, the burned tissue pale in the dying light. She swept the room with her eyes. Cephali, Plethor, Tyrell, his crystalline spiral turning slow as contemplation. Eshra, barely a shimmer now, a heat haze presence in the corner. No Baird. Her weapon tracked to Cephali, then to Plethor. Something hard and certain settled into her jaw. Plethor stepped forward. It was not a flinch. It was not the reflexive movement of a terrified conscript trying to appease. He walked, with his crooked left forearm and his 2 bright green-gold scales, and placed himself directly between the human weapon and the Gorthak leader. His throat frill was raised. Tamsin had seen it flattened in fear 100 times. She had never seen it fully extended. It was not fear now. He spoke. The governor is gone. He used Baird's name, not the title. The man. He walked through the gate because someone had to. Because there was no time for a decision, and he made one anyway. Because he had been lying to everyone for 17 days about the evacuation, and this was the first true thing he could do. Plethor's voice did not shake. His Gorthak-inflected standard was slow and careful. He was not translating for anyone. He was speaking for himself. The key opened for him, not for us. The architects knew. They built their gate to judge, and it judged him, and he walked through. The door closed behind him. He is not coming back. The silence that followed was absolute. Lydic did not lower her weapon. She whistled, thin, tuneless, 2 notes that curled through the ash-tasting air, and died. Her thumb rested on the trigger guard. She had killed Gorthak before. She had wanted to kill many more, but the sound of her own tick, that shrill, familiar signal, carried nothing behind it now. No violence waiting, just habit. She looked at Tamsin. Tamsin looked back. Something passed between them in that look. It would take years to name it. Grief, maybe, or the beginning of a question neither of them knew how to ask. The question of what they had been doing here, what the occupation had been, whether Baird's last honest act was the first honest act any of them had performed since the landers touched down. Lydic's eyes were dry. Tamsin's were not. Neither of them spoke. Cephali broke the silence. Her voice was low and rough. Malnutrition had stolen its resonance, but not its weight. She told Lydic that the human governor had made a deal before the gate closed. Safe passage off Gorthak soil for every human still breathing. He swore an oath. He did not have time to seal it. She was sealing it now. Her word. Not his. The remnant would honor it. Lydick's weapon did not move. She looked at Cephali. 7 feet of bronze scale. One eye clouded gray from a human flashburn, tail still against the stone. The Gorthak leader did not blink. Her reptilian eyes held Lydick's gaze without challenge, without surrender. She was not asking for trust. She was stating a fact. Plethor remained where he was, between the weapon and his leader. He had not moved. He would not move. Tyrell spoke. The Gamari ambassador's voice arrived slow and deliberate, wind over glass, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He said the gate had not destroyed the human governor. It had accepted him. The architects did not build their failsafes to kill. They built them to judge. The judgment was not a sentence. It was a relocation. Wherever the gate had taken Baird Corrick, he was alive. Tamsin heard the words. She let them settle. She did not know if they were true. She did not know if Tyrell was capable of lying. She did not know if it mattered. Baird was gone. The gate was closed. The key was gone with him. What remained was 412 garrison personnel, 11,000 dependents, 17 days of evacuation window, and a Gorthak leader offering safe passage on the word of a dead governor. She rose. The stone where she had knelt was damp. She did not wipe it away. She tapped her sternum twice with 2 fingers. One tap. A second tap. The old tick, the processing habit, the rhythm she had used for 20 years whenever contradictory information hit her brain. Her fingers found the spot. They rested there, and then they dropped to her side. She stopped tapping. The habit was gone. There was nothing left to process. Her brother had walked through a door into the dark. The occupation was over. The last lie Baird Corrick ever told was the one he told himself, that he could hold the empire together long enough for everyone to escape. He had not held it together. He had let it go. He had stepped through a gate into somewhere the architects had built for a purpose no one understood. And in doing so, he had given her the one thing she had spent 5 years trying to protect, a way out. She spoke. Her voice was steady. It surprised her. She did not look at the spot where the gate had been. She did not look at Cephali or Plithor or Lydick. She looked at the tunnel entrance, where the garrison soldiers stood with their weapons half raised and their faces slack with confusion. She told them the evacuation was now official. The governor had confirmed the order before the gate closed. All human personnel and dependents would begin loading the transports at dawn. The Gorthak Remnant Council had guaranteed safe passage. Captain Harn would coordinate the withdrawal. Lydick's head turned. Her weapon still pointed at nothing. Tamsin met her eyes. That look again, longer this time. Lydick's whistle did not come. Her thumb moved away from the trigger guard. She nodded. Once. Sharp. The gesture of a soldier receiving an order she had no intention of questioning. Dawn came gray and cold. The landing field was a mess of cargo pallets and personnel carriers, and civilian transports with their engines already cycling. Humans moved in organized streams. Garrison soldiers directed civilians up loading ramps. Crates of rations and medical supplies and water recyclers vanished into cargo bays. The operation was smooth. Tamsin had planned it 17 days ago on a datapad in her bunker office. She had not known then that Gorthak conscripts would be helping to load the ships, but they were. 37 remnant fighters, malnourished, scarred, the survivors of 5 years of occupation. They worked alongside the humans who had occupied their world. They lifted crates. They guided children up the ramps. They did not speak. Neither did the humans. There was no trust in it. There was no forgiveness. There was something else. Something that had not existed before the gate closed. Plethor stood at the base of the primary loading ramp. He was not lifting crates. He was watching. His throat frill was lowered, but it was not flattened. It was relaxed. The way a throat frill sits when its owner is not afraid. When its owner is simply present. Lydick Harn walked past him and stopped. She did not look at him. She looked at the ships, at the gray sky, at the distant ridge where the capital's ruins cut a jagged line against the clouds. She said nothing, but she did not whistle. Her hands hung at her sides, empty. Tamsin stood at the top of the ramp. She watched the field. The last civilians were boarding. The garrison was breaking down the perimeter. The occupation of Gorthak soil was ending in the gray light of a cold morning, and no one was firing a weapon. She did not tap her sternum. She did not need to. She knew what Baird had done. He had walked into the dark because someone had to. Because the key had judged him and found him acceptable. Because the last lie he told was the one that set them all free. Far away, unimaginably far, in a place where the sky had never seen human light. Baird Corrick opened his eyes.